Good afternoon, and thanks for joining today. My name is Christine Williams, and I'm very excited to be moderating this next session. Diversity and inclusion is so important to me personally, to AM where I work, and to all of our colleagues and clients. We work so hard every day to ensure everyone feels equally involved, supported in all areas of the workplace. I'm lucky enough to work at Aon as the Global Specialty Products Leader. For our next session, we're going to talk about caregiving in 2022 and beyond, and how you achieve work-life integration and harmony. Our next speaker was a #1 top producer and leader at a $2 billion organization for over 14 years. She did this all while caring for 2 young children. She's an award-winning keynote speaker, trainer, executive facilitator, and coach. She's been invited to speak to global organizations including Google, Workday, Johnson & Johnson, and JP Morgan Chase. And you might have seen her in Forbes, Real Simple, or Fast Company. She's also, this is a little bit of a fun fact, an incurable chocoholic, which I think we'd get along very well, and a 32nd generation Pakistani princess, which means she thinks it doesn't mean a lot. I'm super impressed because I think that's very cool. Finally, she's a TEDx speaker and is publishing her first book, Awkward and Upward, which I tell you, I was on her website last night thinking about pre-ordering, in 2023. And her parents and family are very proud. Please give a warm welcome to Henna Pryor. Thanks, Henna. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Christine. I'm laughing just so folks know the 32nd generation Pakistani princess thing. I say it's no longer cool because Pakistan is no longer a monarchy, so it doesn't actually mean anything. It comes with no perks. It's just a fun fact. And yes, incurable chocoholic. So if there's any others in the audience, I'm with you. Maybe one day there will be a cure, but I'm kind of hoping not. So welcome to this session. I'm so happy to be here with everyone and equally honored to speak on a topic that means so darn much to me. You know, caregiving in 2022 and beyond, quite frankly. What does this mean? What does this look like? And how can we do it in a way that serves us all a little bit better? So, again, want to kick us off. I appreciated that wonderful introduction from Christine. I'll add just a couple things to it. So, again, Henna Pryor. I play in the space of workplace performance. I'm a certified executive coach, keynote speaker, and I founded a company called Pryority Group. I did do my first TEDx a few weeks ago. Before you go Googling, I'm still patiently waiting for TED.com to post it. So it should be there in a few weeks, but it is coming, I promise. And here's just some of the things that you can find out about me on LinkedIn. But I want to tell you more about the things that you can't find out about me on LinkedIn. And that's why this topic means a lot to me. So I am the proud parent of a 12-and-a-half-year-old daughter. She's in 7th grade, and a 10-year-old son. He's in 5th grade. I am also, as I've come to find out recently, a member of what we are all now calling the sandwich generation, which means having a parent or aging, caregiver of our own who is in that age range of 65 or older, while simultaneously having children who are either minors, who you are fully responsible for, or grown children who you are financially responsible for. And so many of us in middle adulthood are navigating part of that equation, both sides of that equation. And in this new era, this idea of balancing professional ambition with caregiving at home, caregiving outside of the home, has taken on new layers of complexity, new layers of stress that were, introduced to us in the pandemic. And this idea of work-life balance feels often, I don't know about you, but to me, like an unattainable myth. Right? So as my kids were younger, they were more biologically needy. I had infants, I had toddlers, they were tugging on me. Now, again, don't know who can relate to this, but I've got, middle schoolers, elementary schoolers who have activities that seem to be taking up all the time. How do we balance it all, right? This is the grand question, and this is the question that we're going to try our best to answer a little bit in this discussion today. So what I want to answer specifically and share is some goals for today. Who is this for? First of all, this is for professionals who are doing any kind of caregiving and seeking ways to manage stress. So if you are caregiving for anyone at any level of your life or in any part of your life and want to manage some of the stress that inevitably accompanies that, this is for you. If you're someone who is struggling to juggle family and work and life, this is for you. And if you just are seeking a little more harmony in your lives in all of these places, hopefully you'll find some insights and some ahas here that you can take with you and helps you feel a little more in control of the situation. So I love this image. I want to start with this. The goal for today is we want to talk about a framework to overcome daily stress by creating harmony in your life. You're going to hear me use that word more than once, this idea of harmony. I love this visual of, someone teetering on the skinny stick or the rope here. It never looks quite as neat as we hope it will, right? Anybody doing this, save for the professionals, is going to feel and look a bit wobbly as they're crossing this. And we're going to explore a framework through a model that David McNeff ideated, and he calls it the 7 slice method. So I like models, I like frameworks, but I like things that are also actionable. I think talking in theory is sometimes inspiring and motivational, but I want to know how. What are the concrete things I can do to make this feel a little bit more manageable? So I want to start with asking you this question. Is this you? Okay. Do you spend most of the day at work feeling like you're performing under pressure? And do you then go home and snap at your loved ones, only to regret it later? So I'm going to be the first and raise my hand, right? High achiever, very ambitious. I put a lot of heart into my work. And then I come home and I've got about this much energy for my husband's request of the thing that I told him over and over, or my kids, coming in my face about something I wasn't expecting. Unfortunately, and especially lately, this kind of common stress is an all too common factor amongst modern professionals, and the consequences stink. We all know this. We all feel this. And to combat this idea, to combat this problem, you've probably heard the importance over the years of we need to maintain a work-life balance, right? And while this concept was very popular with HR departments and such in the media over the last few years, I don't think I need to tell anyone that striving for balance is not realistic, right? Striving for balance is not realistic. In fact, your life is much richer than just those two things, work and life. So not only is the word balance not realistic, I'm here to tell you that just work-life part of that equation isn't enough. Your life is much richer than that. So in our time together today, I want to teach you how to identify 5 other slices of life and integrate them to better handle the daily pressure of being a working caregiver. So again, whatever that looks like for you, whether that's an aging parent, whether that's children, whether that's any other kind of dependent who counts on you, yes, it is a pressure and it is often a daily pressure. So we want to integrate all these slices of our life to better handle those pressures. So a few things that we're going to learn concretely. I want to talk about a little bit more about why aspiring to work-life balance, and you're going to notice I'm real blunt. Why aspiring to that is pointless. Let's leave that to the side. We're going to hopefully get rid of that term today. How you can be on call for 18 hours a day and still live a harmonious life. Believe it or not, it is possible. And how to make time for new activities when your schedule is packed. This seemed impossible to me just a few years ago, but there is a method to the madness. We're going to learn a few ways how to do that today. So again, let's go through another little visual scenario. I know many of us have been in these situations and it helps to imagine ourselves in them in the context of this discussion. So imagine that you've just either gotten home from a lousy day at work, or if you work from home, that you just shut down the computer on that lousy day at work, where your boss just announced impending layoffs. As you walk in, you run into your teenage daughter. Mine's 12 and a half, so not quite teen, but let's say you walk into your teenage daughter, and unfortunately, the two of you have been at odds lately. You've been arguing lately, and soon you find yourself embroiled in an argument with her about the same thing again. Does it sound like I'm speaking from experience? Just a little bit. When she storms off, you sit down to go through the mail, to check your personal email, only to find a letter from the IRS. You're being audited. And you're like, I'm going to implode. right? That's how it feels in that moment. You're probably now feeling a sense of steep overwhelm. And you've probably experienced that sense of overwhelm, that kind of day, at least once in your life. I know I can't see you, but if you want to raise your hand on this, yeah, right? It's been a day. It's been that kind of day. And while it's normal to have the occasional stressful day or stressful week, it's human. Too many successful professionals end up in a spiral of daily pressure when it comes to these two opposing forces, which quickly turns into being knocked over by a desperate feeling of having no way out. I'll tell you, my internal dialogue on many days was some version of, I feel like I'm really sucking at one of these, right? I really feel like I'm stinking at one of these things. So what am I going to do about it? So a key idea that we're going to embrace from this day forward is the goal is not work-life balance. We're throwing that out. But work-life harmony across all areas of your life. So just a couple quick stats. Over 76% of employees in the US report feeling burned out at work. That number, I believe, has gone up even slightly more since the last year or two of reintegrating back into new environments, hybrid, etc. 1 in 4 Americans say they're stressed to the gills from having to juggle heavy workloads and family responsibilities, and they struggle to squeeze in outside interests. When we even suggest to some folks, what do you do for fun? They're like, I'm sorry, what? What do I do for fun? I'm barely staying afloat, right? What does that even mean? So because of this, the term work-life balance, it honestly feels like a pipe dream. I think a lot of times when high achievers hear that, we're like, It's something people throw around when it comes to preventing burnout. It's become notorious as this idealized notion for preventing burnout, but we know that we don't really believe it. So instead, this feeling of stress accumulating to a crisis point is a result of spending all your waking time in 2 areas: the family and the professional slices of your life, while neglecting the other 5. We're going to talk about the other 5, but they are the personal, the physical, the intellectual, the emotional, and the spiritual slices. And David McNeff calls these the 7 slices that collectively make up your life. So instead of trying to play this balancing act, right? Remember the guy with the teetering buckets? Instead of trying to play this balancing act that you'll never win, thinking in terms of the 7 slices means that you're going to strive for harmony across the various areas that make up your life. And we all have these slices in our life. So by using this approach, we're aiming to prevent the problem of stress accumulation. We're aiming to be proactive about the problem of stress accumulation as it relates to caregiving and working in 2022. And we're going to start by honestly looking at the areas in our own lives that require positive attention. So I keep saying harmony. Let me give you a quick definition of this. What does harmony mean? Harmony, or you can think of it as work-life wellness or work-life integration, choose your word. It's an active process through which people become aware of and make intentional choices toward a more successful existence as it relates to these pieces. So it's a very conscious, very self-directed, evolving process of achieving your full potential and not feeling stressed to the gills all the time. So wellness, the term that we're hearing a lot in the last couple of decades, but it's multidimensional. It doesn't look the same for everyone. It doesn't feel the same for everyone, but it includes lifestyle. It includes mental and spiritual well-being. It includes the environment that you operate in. And as human beings, and this is really important, we need different sources of well-being energy to operate at our best. We need it from different places. So physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual. None of it is sufficient by itself. None of it is sufficient by itself, and they all influence one another. So how do we take a quick stock of this? Let's start by taking a high-level stock, and then we're going to go in a little. So here's the goal. How are you? One of the most common questions we ask each other every day. Right? Somebody who's a busy working parent, or they're taking care of an aging parent of their own, sometimes it's, oof, how are you? We ask each other that every day. If you're currently finding it hard to manage stress or manage the juggle, you might at best answer, I'm okay. Right? How many times have we said, I'm okay, I'm okay? Or at worst, you launch into a massive rant session about how you have everything and then some on your plate right now. Again, been there, done that. But in my coaching and in my workshops, I see clients who handle stress of this juggle very well. And they can actually answer along the lines of, things are hectic right now, but it'll be worth it in the long run. They actually believe it when they say it, right? So no matter what they're going through, their answers show the confidence they've built in their ability to face the current pressure while also looking forward to the future. So let me be clear. It's impossible to be fully satisfied with every area of your life all the time. We wish. But you can also take on a similarly practical perspective by connecting with all 7 slices of your life every day. So let's look at this method. Let's look at the 7 slice method to prevent the problem of stress accumulation, starting by honestly looking at those areas of your own life that require our attention. So let's look at this together. Here are the 7 slices. And I'll tell you right now, there's a typo where it's supposed to say spiritual. There's a missing letter, and it's going to drive me nuts for the next 40 minutes. So I just want to acknowledge it. But here are the 7 slices. So professional and family, work, life. Usually when we think about work life, people associate the word life with family. So professional and family do have a spot there, but also notice there are others, right? We also see personal, physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. So the first thing we're going to do, the very first thing, and by the way, I hope that you hear this and then you take your time with it. We only have an hour together today. I hope you kind of go back to your desk later or take out a piece of paper later and really take your time with this. But the first thing we're going to do is assess them. We're going to assess them. And you can call this your work-life harmony inventory or your work-life integration inventory. We're going to take an inventory. So we're going to take an honest inventory of each and every slice of our lives. So you can do this if you're a spreadsheet type of person, you can do a spreadsheet. In the first column, you can label each row with a slice. If you're a visual thinker, maybe you can draw a pie chart like this instead and fill in the labels. But each one gets a slice: professional, physical, personal, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And then at a high level, I'm going to get granular on each one. Ask yourself, what percentage of time each week do you spend in each slice of your life? Now, really critical here, no judgment. No judgment while we're doing this activity. I don't want anyone going, as soon as I saw this pie chart, I knew, I stink in this one. We're not doing that. We're not doing this with judgment. We're just taking a look together. So let's talk about the slices. The physical dimension to start. The physical dimension speaks to our very human need for some sort of physical movement and activity. This is the foundation, and too many of us treat our bodies as if health is our birthright, right? We've learned that it's not. We work too long and continuously, which takes a toll, even if our job is sedentary, and sometimes especially if our job is sedentary. So optimal harmony, or this work-life wellness, is actually met through the combination of some movement and, of course, eating habits, etc. So the physical dimension of wellness includes personal responsibility and care for our minor illnesses. This means when you start coughing, you don't let it go to a full-blown, bronchitis. Ideally, you go see the doctor, knowing when attention is needed. People living in harmony with their physical wellness are usually able to monitor their own vital signs. They understand their body's warning signs, right? My stomach's been in knots the last few days. I feel like I have had this just headache that's sat here for the last 2 months, right? They're able to recognize their body's signs. Now, of course, the physical benefits of looking good and feeling good, these actually lead to the psychological benefits of enhanced self-esteem, self-control, determination, and a sense of direction, which make us more effective at work. Okay? So ignoring this slice can be really dangerous. So when you're assessing your physical slice, try to just estimate what percentage of time, and again, no judgment, do you spend taking some loose care of your physical self. And while figuring out a percentage, I want you to also consider whether you move regularly. And this can be any kind of movement. This can be walking, this can be stretching, or do you only do it when it's convenient? So a couple examples of positive indicators that you can think about with your physical could be, I get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, right? That's a great way to take care of your physical body. Could be, I'm satisfied with my level of physical activity. It could be, I generally eat healthy, save for the occasional treat. So whatever that is for you, just take stock. Give yourself an honest assessment and see where you think you land, okay? The next one is the emotional. The emotional dimension recognizes awareness and acceptance of your feelings. This one can be challenging, especially for those of us that are in this sort of middle sandwich generation, because nowadays, I feel very grateful that my own children are growing up in an era where being more open and honest about emotions and feelings is accepted. But those of us who didn't grow up in households like that, or maybe in a stiff upper lip environment, this one can sometimes take some work. It recognizes, again, the awareness and acceptance of our feelings. So emotional wellness recognizes the degree to which we feel neutral, positive, or even enthusiastic about what's going on in our lives and in ourselves. And it also includes the capacity to manage our feelings and our related behaviors. And sometimes that includes realistically assessing our own limitations and our ability to cope effectively with stress. And the harmonious person, again, not balanced, but the harmonious person keeps satisfying relationships with other people. And they're able to express their feelings freely, and they're managing their feelings effectively. So in the same way, as you're reflecting on your emotional slice, consider how often you consider your feelings in a week. How often do you think about your feelings in a week? Are you in control of them, or is it the other way around? So again, some factors, some indicators you can use to manage your emotional examples might be, I effectively manage my stress, or I generally feel positive about my life, or I am able to regulate and express my emotions when I need to, right? So taking quick stock, how are we doing on the emotional slice? Now, next, I'm going to combine two pie slices. We're going to have an extra large helping here. I'm going to combine the personal and the intellectual. So the personal slice, they are a little different though. The personal dimension, it just recognizes our human need to contribute to the welfare of others and community, not just thinking about ourselves. This is having harmony with other people and the environment. Maybe that's your coworkers, maybe that's friends, but you're trying your best to build better living spaces and social networks. They say, what's the quote, the Jim Rome quote about you're the 5 people you spend the most time with. This is your permission slip to carve out time to talk to your friends, okay? Even if it's virtually, even if it's over the phone. But personal is its own slice. It is not mixed in with family. It is not mixed in with emotional. Personal is its own slice, okay? Intellectual recognizes that all of us, by default, we have this need for stimulating creative mental activities. And a person living in work-life harmony expands their knowledge, and they recognize this potential for gaining skills and sharing those things with others. They get excited by intellectual growth and stimulation. And as you develop your intellectual curiosity, you're going to strive to expand and challenge your mind with creative endeavors, even if you're doing it in tiny bite-sized doses. We're going to talk about that towards the end. How do we access some of this stuff if it feels big? So when you're looking at your personal and intellectual slices, again, think about how much time do you spend, for example, engaging in hobbies or doing things for pleasure or learning out of the sheer curiosity, not because you have to. So examples of positive indicators for the personal might be, I'm intentional about spending time to enhance my personal relationships or my important friendships. It could be, I play an active role in making life better for other people. It could be, I feel connected to my community or my environment or my church or my book club, whatever it is. Examples of positive indicators for intellectual are, I try to regularly expand my knowledge and skills. I try to actively pursue personal interests. If something is interesting, I take the time to Google it, learn about it. I share my knowledge and skills with others. So these are the personal and intellectual slices. Then we come to the spiritual slice, finally, the spiritual dimension, which recognizes our search for meaning and purpose in human existence. Now, again, this doesn't have to be religion. This could be spirituality in any sense. At the spiritual level, we essentially are undervaluing the fuel that we derive from a sense of purpose and a clear sense of values. So again, whether you believe there's a higher power, whether you believe that in the universe, or whether it's God, or whether it's, spirituality exists in laughter between two friends. Doesn't really matter what it looks like, but when something really matters to us, it becomes a powerful source of energy and direction, which gosh knows when we were caregiving, we could use energy and we could use direction. So rather than responding reactively to every new demand that crosses our desk or crosses our counter at home, purpose serves as a roadmap for why we're doing what we do. And you know that you're feeling spiritually integrated when your actions start to feel more consistent with your beliefs and values. Kind of creates this worldview. I'm doing this because, right? Your spiritual slice involves the time, again, if you're someone who practices your faith, maybe it's that. If you follow a formal religion, maybe it's that. Or just engaging with your inner world and values. This is going to sound crazy, but a lot of my spirituality, I think I access when I travel. I feel spiritually awakened when I experience new cultures. And I think it's because I slow down. I'm aligned with my values. I'm looking at things more deeply. My purpose feels centered again. So examples of positive indicators when it comes to the spiritual slice could be, I can articulate my values and I'm able to make decisions that are in line with my values. I feel a sense of purpose and I feel connected to that sense of purpose in my personal life and my professional life. Could say I regularly act in ways that are consistent with my beliefs, right? These are some measuring sticks for the spiritual slice. Now, with all of these, for a realistic overview, first of all, we want to make sure the percentage does add up to 100 and not more. Remember, the point is to take an accurate snapshot of what your life looks like right now. And please do it with honesty. Again, no self-judgment allowed. We are taking a measurement. Nobody is here looking over your shoulder going, oof, that's looking rough, right? We are taking a self-measurement, a self-judgment. And after you do this, I want you to ask yourself, do any of your answers surprise you? Do any of your answers surprise you? Is there one category where you are run away the strongest? And where do you see the biggest potential to improve in the spirit of restoring your work-life harmony? So I'll tell you, for me, there was a period in my life where my spiritual and personal side took a little bit of a nosedive. I left a position years ago, a career of 14 years, and I felt like I was a bit wandering. I didn't know what my values were. I felt a little bit of a loss of identity. And so I kind of became this, kind of loosey-goosey wandering. What am I doing? Who am I doing it for? Why am I doing it? And I ended up feeling stressed all the time. So one area that I knew I had to improve was just to get real centered on what is the purpose I'm moving toward? What are the values I'm moving toward? I know for a lot of people, the personal side, in especially early days of the pandemic, understandably for many, those connections took a nosedive. We were really good on Zoom, on connecting with our friends in unique, creative ways. And then I think many of us got tired of it and we let those things fade into the ether a little bit. So honest stock today, what are some of those areas? And the question is, are we doing this to torture ourselves? Is Henna just making me look at this so I can see how poorly I'm doing in one area? Are we just torturing ourselves and reminding ourselves of how devoid of certain buckets we've become? Of course not. No, I'm not doing that to you. But being very clear about why some slices dominate your life while others take a back seat is what can provide you the nudge you need to make a change. I want it to stare you in the face. I want you to put pen to paper and I want it to stare you in the face. I hope your results shock you a bit. That's the truth, because everyone reaches a pivotal point where a dramatic reset starts to feel necessary. And so here's the key. If you're hearing this and going, gosh, that sounds nice. Gosh, that sounds nice, but there aren't enough hours in the day. There aren't enough, energies in the bank. I don't know how to even begin to restore my spiritual slice or to restore my personal slice? How do I even begin? Most people don't neglect areas of their lives willingly or even consciously. And I'm going to assume most of you are going to be most people in this situation. Most people don't do this willingly or consciously. You might have lost your personal life, your social life, because you got really busy with work and family obligations. Maybe your children are very young and need a lot of your attention. Maybe you've had some health issues with an aging parent or caregiver. Maybe you used to be part of a garden club and never picked it back up because in the pandemic it kind of dissolved, right? There are lots of reasons these things happen, none of which you should be blaming or shaming yourself for. And when someone asks you about it, you might shrug and say something like, sadly, I don't have time for that anymore. Again, if that's something that goes through your head, I just want you to have a moment of honesty. Sadly, I just don't have time for it anymore. This dismissive response is normal when you're already feeling overwhelmed. I want to say that again because I want it to be your permission slip. This dismissive response is normal when you're already feeling overwhelmed. So that's why the key is to start small. Start as small as possible. Okay, what is the next smallest action you can take? So I'll give you an example. One of my previous coaching clients, she has 3 very small children, 3 children under the age of 5. And she said to me in a coaching call, she said, Henna, I'm going to lose it because I am managing everybody's lives. It's becoming unbearable. My parents are calling me with some issues these days. In addition to these 3 small kids, my husband is now traveling for work again. I'm drowning. So in that situation, how could she start small? So what we agreed on is that she committed to finding just 5, on a really good day, 10 minutes, but just 5 minutes to close her bedroom door and either meditate or if that felt out of reach, do some deep breathing. I'll tell you, when my kids were young, not only did I close my bedroom door, and this is a 100% true story, not only did I close my bedroom door, I'm fortunate enough to have a walk-in closet. I would close the bedroom door. I would lock that. I would go into my walk-in closet. I would sit on the floor with the lights off and take 5 minutes of deep breaths. But it felt like a little sliver of solitude. Now, would I have loved to go away for a girls' weekend and take a break from it all? Of course I would have. But in that moment, it just wasn't accessible. It was a little hard to get to. Start small, okay? I'll give you just one more example. Another one of my clients has been working from home, as many of us did the last few years, and her husband was also working from home. And they noticed how they were so exhausted from their Zoom meetings that by the end of the day, they could barely find the energy to talk to each other, right? Let alone have a robust, marital, cutesy date night. Like, I barely have the energy to talk to my husband. So they decided to set a daily 20 to 30 minute appointment in their calendars at 5:30 p.m. every single day to take a walk together around the neighborhood. In this way, they actually tended to their personal, their physical, and their family slices all at once. And sometimes she would grab her 2 next door neighbors. So you can combine slices. You can find small activities that actually hit some of the different slices. Once they did this, their relationship and their attitude towards the pressure of working from home improved. And she said it became one of the parts of their day they looked forward to more than anything else. It became one of their favorite parts of the day. So in order to plan the steps you're going to take to integrate the different slices of your life, I want you to also know, what is your motivational style? We need to know it and we need to identify it. So are you someone who is more group oriented? I personally am an extrovert. I get a lot of energy from being in the company of other people. Some people say, you know what? I'm much more of a self-starter. I don't need to be in a group in order to get things going. I'm much more of a self-starter. Also understanding, are you someone who tends to start off strong with beginning something only to lose interest quickly? Raising my hand, that's me, right? The plan is to make something that feels really customized to motivate you. So again, I'm asking you to get honest with yourself. The more customized it is to you, the way you operate, the more likely you are to stick with it. If you're someone who works really well off of a plan, right? 5:30 in the calendar, we're doing this walk, non-negotiable. I don't know that that would do it for me. I think I would find a reason to make an excuse. But what would do it for me as an extrovert who likes group things is building an accountability with a neighbor who's also feeling overwhelmed, right? If we created that accountability, that would make me more likely to get up and do it. So know, what are the things that help you feel motivated to move to your next level of integration? What are the things that you want to prioritize first? Where are the areas for the most potential? So know this, if you feel overwhelmed right now by caregiving, by work-life balance, by work-life, the idea of work-life balance, I have good news. It's not about the amount of time you spend in each area of your life each day, but it's about the quality of it. I think we say this a lot when it comes to spending time with our children or spending time with our parents or any sort of dependents that we're involved with caregiving for. We say this a lot, but we don't always believe it. It truly is not about the amount of time you spend in each pie slice. It's about the quality of the time that you spend in each pie slice. So think about yourself as the conductor of your own orchestra. If you have 7 minutes to conduct, to maintain, my husband's a music guy, so to maintain the depth and texture of the music, you need each instrument to be present in order to be successful. But ultimately, if you're the conductor, it's up to you about your own sense of harmony. What sounds good to you may not sound as good to someone else. My husband was a former drummer, so he loves it when the drums are kind of loud and you can hear them above everything else. Other people would not care for that. They would say, oh, too noisy, too much, can't handle it. So that metaphor is really apt because the music, the way the harmony comes together is up to you. But all of the instruments have to be there or it sounds wonky. It doesn't sound good, right? So the way to achieve this work-life harmony is just to commit that you'll pick up each of the 7 instruments. You don't need to be that good at the drums. You don't need to be amazing at the oboe, right? But just commit that you'll pick up each of the 7 instruments, even if it's just for a few minutes, even if it's just you walking into your walk-in closet, turning off the lights and sitting there for 45 seconds, right? Just for a few minutes each and every day, integrate all of the slices into your life. Now, some questions that you can ask yourself on this, if you want to kind of think about take-home questions, is how do you support your well-being in each area? There is not one way of doing it, right? And I think the pandemic gave us some different ways of doing it. I never would have thought that I could stay close and connected to my friends, except for hanging out, in person. But we learned there were creative ways to feel connected. Often my friends and I will send each other audio messages now instead of text messages because that voice thing makes us feel more connected. I FaceTime more than I did with my friends that live in different parts of the country. How do you support your well-being in each area? I found for my intellectual slice that sometimes I get really this guilt trip on myself if I've got a stack of books on the side of my nightstand that don't get touched, right? Real talk. There's a stack of book on my nightstand that doesn't always get touched because children and parents and life. So instead, I have downloaded the Blinkist app, which is sort of the Cliff's Notes of all of the major business and leadership books. I read that instead. It takes 10 minutes or less most of the time. So how do you support your well-being in each area? Can you find creative ways to attend your needs for each slice that feel a little bit more attainable? Next question is, how do you deprioritize or get in the way of your well-being in each of the areas? So I'll tell you right now, there are some things that I do to sometimes self-sabotage, right? When it comes to wanting to be more mindful of my spiritual slice. Spiritual slice for me to access it means I need to take some time. I need to go into the closet, or I need to drop in a little bit. And I deprioritize it every time I busy myself with social media. Every single time, right? And so am I saying it never happens? Of course not. But it's just about owning it. How do we deprioritize or get in the way of these areas? And then lastly, what are 3 small specific changes that you can make in the next month to support your work-life harmony, to support this integration? Again, 3 small specific changes. I don't want it to be big. In fact, I'm insisting that they're not. So 3 small specific changes. Now, a pro tip I want to give you on this is if you want to determine whether an activity is contributing to harmony in your life or is just a distraction, there's an easy way to do an honest check-in with yourself. So I'll give you an example. After binging your favorite TV shows for a few hours after the kids go to bed, or after, parent goes to bed, whoever, ask yourself if you feel refreshed. Ask yourself if you feel refreshed. I know it sounds simple, but it is a powerful question because I have many a times convinced myself intellectually, okay, binge watching Schitt's Creek, this is going to relax me. It's leaving Netflix on October 2nd, so I better hurry up and keep watching. But if you ask me afterwards, do I feel refreshed staying up late watching Schitt's Creek? The answer is often no, okay? If yes, which for some of you will be, this is me. If yes, then yes, this activity is serving, that particular slice, maybe your personal slice, your time for yourself, okay? Maybe that you're laughing your head off and maybe that serves a value around laughter, enjoyment, joy. Okay, maybe it's serving part of your emotional slice or your spiritual slice. If yes, that's fine. But ask yourself, are you feeling refreshed after the activities that are distracting you? Also, I just want to call out, we're all wired differently. So if you do that and you feel the same, or if you feel drained once you turn off the TV, or if you feel exhausted the next day because you stayed up late, then again, maybe it's time to rethink how much time you spend watching it. Just know your own wiring. More importantly, and I want to make sure I say this, I don't have this on the slide, but I want to make sure I say this, show yourself some compassion. When it comes to caregiving, when it comes to balancing all of this with your work in your life, taking time out of your career or your job for caregiving in order to be a better caregiver is a selfless act. So if you've got a little one homesick, if you've got a parent who's going through a tough time, a caregiver who's dealing with an illness, if you've got any of these things, having to take time away from work to shift to that slice, I just want to tell you, I see you. It is a selfless act. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of emotion. It takes a lot of love. I also want you to recognize your common humanity in having to take care of a loved one. Everyone, not everyone, I don't want to speak in absolutes, most people at some point in some way, shape, or form will be in that position of worrying or caring for a loved one, whether it's a family member, whether it's a child, whether it's a caregiver, whether it's a close friend. Others at work will likely show you compassion as well, okay? When my father was in the hospital a couple of years ago, I remember I had to pause my client engagements. I was there, the internet connection wasn't good, so I had to just pause all my client engagements. I was blown away and touched by how understanding my clients were. I was ready for them to be like, okay, there's too much of a break here. We can't deal with this. I was blown away by how human my clients were. And since I work mostly with senior leaders, I realized many of them have had to care for an ailing parent or at one point care for a small child, even if they didn't have children of their own. They'd have nieces, nephews, neighbors, right? So they were very understanding of my situation. Please don't dehumanize the people you work with and keep these things to yourself. More often than not, you will find out that they are compassionate once they know the extent of your situation. Which brings me to the next point, and that's transparency. If you come across a leader or someone at work that does not seem to be understanding the position you're in, if it's a colleague that doesn't seem to be understanding the position you're in, there's a good likelihood that they don't quite understand fully the situation that you're in. So this is where transparency is really important. You don't have to overshare, but you can let people in a little bit about the fact that you have some things going on that are requiring a shift in your attention, and don't apologize for it. Don't apologize for it. In order to have sustainable work-life harmony, not just for the next month, 6 months, year, but if work-life harmony is a goal that you want to work towards for the next 10, 20, 30 years until retirement, this is going to be ongoing transparency. The one great thing, I hate to use the word great thing in COVID in the same sentence, but the greatest thing to come out of it was that we started to see our leaders as human again. One of my coaching clients worked for Verizon, and she said, gosh, our C-suite leaders were pretty, polished, always in suits, very, very serious. And all of a sudden in the early days of the pandemic, when we had town halls, He was at home, his webcam wasn't the greatest, and his kids were running around in the back, and the dog would start barking. And she said, it was the best because all of a sudden we saw him as human. We saw him as human. So your human tendencies, your ability to be a fully formed person who cares for others and can do a great job at work is allowed. In fact, we want it. We need it. Modern business is craving this level of authenticity and craving ways to help you sustain your career. The last thing they want is to see you turn over because you haven't developed a strategy to nurture all of these slices of life. So transparency is really, really key to all of this. So as we start to open up for Q&A, I want to just kind of wrap with this. When it comes to caregiving, this can look different for everyone. For me, again, I'm in that sandwich generation. I am currently juggling the parents, my father who is aging very, very quickly, my mother who is quite a bit younger, but is, starting to go down that same path. My children who still need me, they're not independent. They're still of the age where they can't drive. We're now managing social media. Often there are days where it feels like I don't have the answers. So I don't want to be the person who's giving this session acting as though I have it all figured out. I don't. But one of the best permission slips I've given myself is understanding that reassessing the slices for me has become a regular practice. So when I start to feel super overwhelmed by caregiving and juggling, when I start to feel super inadequate in one area, that is my number one signal. That is my number one alarm that I've, without meaning to, neglected some other slice. Because once I start to pay attention to some of those other slices, suddenly all of those feelings of overwhelm and inadequacy, the volume goes down. They don't disappear entirely, but the volume goes down. So let this be a counter strategy. It's not just about eliminating what is probably difficult to eliminate. It's about counterbalancing and making harmonious the other elements. I hope this all gave you something to think about. I would love to open it up if there are any questions at all, and you can use the Q&A box for questions. So Christine, do we have any at the moment?
That was fantastic. Yes, we do. A question has come in just about, and you just hit on it a little bit, but how often do you find yourself recalibrating, how the time, how you're looking at the seven slices and looking at the time? And are there certain life events or certain times of the year or, end of summer, that kind of makes you do that kind of refresh or reset?
Yeah, I love that question. And I'm sorry to be intentionally a little wishy-washy in my answer. This depends on your wiring and your personality. I will tell you that generally speaking, I like the metaphor of there's people who are marathoners and there's people who are sprinters. Marathoners are a bit more methodical. They are a little bit day by day. They like to keep a pulse on things regularly. Sprinters tend to run hard and then need to catch their breath. I am a sprinter. One is not better than the other, but that is a little bit of the way I operate. I tend to operate with a run hard, my best work I do under pressure, and then I have to pause, catch my breath, recalibrate. So I have some clients who are very intentional about carving out time for this on a weekly, monthly basis. So let's say minimum once a month, they just carve out 10, 15 minutes. It's on their calendar to say, let me take a quick stock of my slices from the past month. Which ones do I completely neglect, right? They make it part of a practice. I will tell you for me, and this is just, you'll learn, I'm a very, keep it to you as honest as possible. I don't live in the structure of that. What I tend to do more often than not is look for my own signals and check engine lights. So I've gotten really good at identifying when I am out of balance in one of the areas. So if I am starting to snap at my kids for no real reason, right? Sometimes they give you a reason to snap, but sometimes it happens for no real reason. That's one of my check engine lights. I'm feeling a little bit out of balance. If I have ignored my friends, if I have not talked to them, if I have not answered their texts, if I've just been in my own world, all in on work for, weeks at a time, and I notice that about myself, that's a check engine light. So for me, I've just started to bring awareness to my own signals and alarms, but I would say play with it and see which one works well for you. If the structure suits, do it that way. If you are someone who has built the awareness to know your own check engine lights, go with that route, but do what works for you.
Great. No, thank you. We have another two more questions that have come in, and I'm going to combine them because I think they're related. And
Okay.
you hit on it a little bit already. One is around how do you address, any tips on sleep deprivation, right? And it comes in cycles. And do you use meditation as part of that? Is that something that you've incorporated into your daily life? And any tips really around juggling this all with the seven slices and what's worked for you?
Mm. So I feel the need to say not a doctor, right? So if it's severe sleep deprivation, please, speak to your doctor, speak to a medical professional. Um, if the sleep deprivation is related to a little one, I just want to tell you that my child, and I'm just going to share from my personal experience, my second child did not sleep till he was 5.5. I thought he would never sleep. I was pretty sure that we just birthed a child that didn't sleep. So I understand sleep deprivation. My daughter slept from 6 weeks on. So I thought my second one was broken, to be honest. Sleep deprivation is very difficult. I remember when I didn't have it, it affected my ability to take care of my health and wellness, right? I didn't make good food choices. I was very stressed all the time. My emotions were never, quite where they should have been. I was always on edge. So I first want to say I honor you. I see you. I feel you. I remember those days. If it is a very little one, I'm just going to cross my fingers and tell you it will likely pass. But when you can't get the chunk of sleep that you need and there's really no way around it, my best advice would be, look at the priority list. And if the sleep is really getting to you, see if there's something else that can drop. There was a season there where I had the best ambitions of being a mom who, packed these wonderful organic homemade lunches. That my son, again, he was 5, he was in kindergarten, he still wasn't sleeping. I realized that the half an hour that it took me to pack his lunch, I could sleep and he could buy lunch. So are there things that you can reprioritize just temporarily to help give you little pockets for a nap or for a little bit of rest? Don't feel guilty doing that if it helps you feel more human and engaged in the rest of your life. I am giving you permission to do that, but if it becomes super prohibitive, then obviously would love to make sure we loop in a medical professional on that.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for one more. There's a question that just came in, and I think it's a good finishing question around do you offer any content on LinkedIn? Can you elaborate on what's available as far as work-life integration and harmony?
Sure. Thank you for asking that. So please do follow me on LinkedIn. I am constantly, posting there, sharing there. I call LinkedIn my digital playground. So please, if you're on the call, if this resonated with you, please link up. I don't have any digital, trainings or anything around work-life harmony, but I do run workshops. So this was, keynote style sort of talking at you, but there are some exercises that we do as a group with teams that are very experiential. I think one of the most powerful ways to assess where we are on work-life harmony is to do it in community, because I'm just going to make a confession here. I am very good at making excuses for myself. Very good at it. I will say, well, this is why I'm not doing that. And this is why I'm not spending more time here. And if you can have a trusted community, and, sometimes we do it in breakouts and trios and, quads, you can have people that say, all right, we did this exercise and you say you want X, but what I'm seeing and the decisions on the priorities points more to Y. I will tell you that I am much more transformed when I am in company of another person that can hold the mirror up for me and be very honest and tell me the truth about where I'm letting my boundaries slide, where I'm not sticking to what I said I was going to do. I think community is a very powerful way to do that. So if this is something that feels, resonant for your team or your culture, building in a chance to do it in community is a really powerful exercise and can really bring some deep awareness. But that would be my recommendation for that.
No, fantastic. And I have to say, there's been so many. I love the aha moments. I love the seven slices.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very inspirational. So much to think about. I was taking notes as we were going through it. I mean, this has been absolutely fantastic. So really, thank you, Henna. I would encourage everybody who's able to participate or who's watching this again, to, go to her website, which is Priority, which is Pryority group.com, and see all the wonderful work that she's doing. And really, really thought this was amazing. So thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. And if there was any questions I didn't get to, again, please link up with me. I'm happy to try to give you my best answer one-on-one. But I really am honored to have been here, and we'll all get through it together. I'm living it right alongside of you all. So wishing everyone the best of luck with their caregiving and working in 2022 and well beyond.
Thank you, Henna. Truly inspirational. Thank you.